Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Subramani, and I know it's been a while, but all this time I was preparing for my USMLE Step 1 while in internship, and I'm glad to say that I passed it with flying colors. I mean, I just passed it, you don't get a score. So I passed my Step 1, and in this video I'm going to summarize my whole journey of my Step 1 preparation, my timeline, the resources I used, my background, my self-assessment, and basically everything, even my exam day experience. So I'm sure you'll find something valuable from this video if you're preparing for Step 1 or if you're preparing for Step 2 as well, because there is quite a bit of overlap in both of these exams. So without much further ado, let's get on with it. Number one, my background. So I am a graduate from a foreign medical college. By foreign medical college, I mean I am a resident of India, and I did not go to college in India. I went to college in Armenia. So according to India, I am a foreign medical graduate, and also according to US, I am an international medical graduate, as they call it, IMG. So I completed my graduation from Yerevan State Medical University in Armenia, and coming back to India, I must appear for this exam called FMGE, and in order to practice in my home country. And of course, if I want to practice in US and undergo residency there, I must give my USMLE. So my goal was to always give USMLEs, but also have a chance to practice in my home country. So I must, clear both of these exams. So it was my fifth year. Let's go to timeline of my prep. So I was in my fifth year, which is my penultimate year or the second last year of my medical college, and this is where I decided that, hey Subhav, you have to appear for two very big exams, especially FMG exam, which has a very low pass rate, approximately like 20-25% pass rate on an average, sometimes 30, sometimes 15 also. So which is a very difficult exam, and obviously USMLEs are already one of the most difficult paths into residency, especially if you're an international medical graduate. So I thought I have to find a way to tackle both of these exams and not study for them separately, but just study and clear both of these exams. So the answer was to clear my basics, which I had forgotten from my first, second, third year. The basic foundation, I had forgotten most of it, and I was like, before or getting into my final year, I must complete or revise my basics. So when I have to study for these exams, it is a more quick process because my base is strong. So that's how I started, and that's how I found out about Anki. And I used Anki mainly to get my base knowledge straight. So I will talk about the resources which I used, but Anki was a tool I used to retain the knowledge I gained when I started my preparation. So which was in the end of fifth year. So I had sixth year, and I gave USMLE during my internship, which is like after graduation, after sixth year. So you can say there was a 2 to 3 year period in between me starting Anki and actually appearing for Step 1. There was no dedicated period, and I won't say that I prepared for Step 1 for 2 to 3 years, of course not. In the meantime, I had a lot of things. I was just using Anki to brush up my basic knowledge, and that was my goal. So in order to clear both FMG and USMLE, and that's what happened, and that's why I'm filming this video today. So this was about my background of I have to appear for both of these exams and not just USMLE, so there's an added pressure. So now let's jump more into my timeline. So as I said, I started, won't say preparing, but correcting my base knowledge from my fifth year. I had no dedicated period, and I took my, there's always this, like we always say I gave my exam, but in American English it's I took my exam. So I'm just going to refer it as I took my exam. So I took my USMLE during my internship year, approximately 9 months into internship. So my internship period was, I won't say the most hectic, but it's work, it's like 9 to 5, but I got time to study in between, and we'll talk more about how to find time during internship to study. So I had created this schedule in my Notion dashboard, which I'll show now. And in this schedule, I had everything like, okay, these resources, these topics I need to study from these resources to get my basics correct. So I used all the USMLE resources because my end goal was to appear for USMLE Step 1, but I knew that these resources will also help me in my final year, in my FMG exam, etc, etc. So I can literally take my time studying from these resources, retaining the knowledge, and eventually when it's time to give Step 1, I can move fast just with the Q bank, and I'll have the base knowledge, and it will be all well. So that's how I started. So jumping onto resources, I had taken first aid book in 2018. So, and I gave my I took my Step 1 in early 2023, 1st Feb. And I did not purchase the new editions of first aid book because I didn't use first aid book as a, like I need to know it, cover by cover, page by page. I used it as a skeleton. This was basically my syllabus for Step 1. This is what all I need to know. Now, the information in first aid is like basically notes from all the resources which I studied. So, for example, I studied most of the physiology from Boards and Beyond, or BNB. And if I look at first aid, every system, there are notes on all of it. So I did not use first aid and study from it. I just used it as a skeleton. So, okay, I must know this topic. If it's not covered in any of the resources which I'm using, I'll study it from first aid. Otherwise, no need to look at it. I just look at the topic. Yeah, I know about this, and that's it. So jumping on to resources, I first studied my systems when I was in the end of my 5th year, because I knew when I study systems, which is like, cardio, respi, renal and all, it will also help me in my final state exam in my medical school, which has, medicine, surgery, obs-gyn, which has medicine, surgery and obs-gyn. So if I brush up these systems, it will help me immensely in medicine. So I skipped the basic knowledge part, which was microbiology, biochemistry, immunology, and I jumped straight into the systems. For systems, I used, for the pathology of the systems, I used Pathoma videos in the book for covering all the pathology of all the systems. I used BNB for the physiology and anatomy part, and I used Sketchy Medical for the pharmacology part. So I would take a system, go do the anatomy and physiology of that system from Boards and Beyonds, and obviously, as I said, the skeleton was from first aid. Like, okay, after doing the anatomy and physiology from Boards and Beyond, I just used to look at first aid. Okay, I have completed these and these topics, great, move on. Then I moved to pathology, which I completed from Pathoma. Again, repeated the same thing. I studied from Pathoma, then had a look at my first aid. Okay, all these topics were covered, great. If 1 or 2 topics were not covered, I just used to tick that topic on my first aid and study it from there. That's it. And same goes for pharm. I studied pharm from Sketchy. If something was not covered, which was there in first aid, I studied it from there. So I used to watch a video, unlock the Anki cards about it, and that's it. And rinse and repeat every single day. So I had to watch a lot of videos, and I was fine doing that because I did not plan to take my Step 1 during my med school. I knew I will take it during my internship year, so I can give my time and really solidify that basic knowledge, because I knew that's going to be helpful in my Step 1, in my FMG, and also in Step 2. So that's what I did. So basically I retained all that knowledge. I saw the videos just once. I did not see the videos again and again. That's because I was doing Anki cards. If you don't know about Anki, I already have a video about Anki, the basics, like what is it, how to use it, what pre-made deck to use, and I'll link it in the cards above. So I used Anki to retain the knowledge, and by the end of taking my Step 1, I had a Anki streak of 125 days, which is like more than 3 years, I guess. So so like I was very consistent with my Anki. There were bad days, like I was at the low, and there were good days where I was very happy. There were like birthdays, New Year's, festivals, etc., etc. But I never gave up on my Anki. It was a habit, a ritual. You can call it whatever. Like no matter the circumstances, I did my Anki. I just did like 2 days I can remember in which I cheated a little bit on my Anki, that I just read the cards and I just by tapping. Those 2 days were number one, the day I became a doctor. I graduated. I took my final exam in the college, and and I passed that, and I was really happy. I did not want to do anything that day. That's an exception. I cheated a bit on Anki. I did few cards and I was like, no, this is not gonna happen today. So I like tap and finished the cards for that day, like that. And the other day where I took the my home country exam, the FMG. I took that exam. It was a long 5-hour exam with the break in between, so 6-hour exam. And that day I was also pretty exhausted, and like I was relieved that this exam is also done. So again, apart from these 2 days, I do not think I cheated any day on Anki. So yeah, 1-2-5 days I was pretty consistent, and I think that's part of my journey, which I will never forget. And I think that yielded a lot of good results for me. I remember a lot of information just because I was using Anki for retaining the knowledge. So that's about it. And yeah, so I completed the systems by my final year. So my plan was to, like, when I took my FMG, I should be done with all the systems. So that is enough knowledge to clear my FMG. So I did not study separately for my FMG exam, which is the exam in my home country, India. I just cleared it on the basis of my basic knowledge from USMLE resources. So that was amazing that this experiment worked out. Like if you have a good foundation, it's enough to clear that exam, because it's a screening exam. It is not like I need to get amazing marks in that or to get a seat somewhere. It's just I have to clear that exam, and that was my goal, to clear that exam in one go, in one attempt, with the basic knowledge without studying separately for it. And that was successful. I was very happy, and I thought that this process is literally working. Anki is working. These resources are working. So like now all I had in mind was step 1. From that time I was like, now I can just study for step 1. So in between the time of taking my FMG exam and starting internship, there were like 2 to 3 months, because you take some, there is some time before you start internship, you have to find and all. So that was the only time I think I exclusively studied for step 1. I had no college and like no other exam and basically nothing, because I was just waiting to start my internship. That is the only time I studied just for step 1 and did nothing else. Otherwise I was always doing something. I was either in medical college preparing for my final exams, or I had like FMG exams, or like I had internship. So internship starts, and I have almost completed all the systems, and now what is left is the basic subjects part, which is the general pathology, immunology, microbiology, biochemistry, which was a big one, and yeah, all these topics which are not covered in systems, and biostats. So my plan was to complete all these quickly and start with my gold standard question bank, which was UWorld. So while doing all this, and also while completing systems, I thought I will start a Q bank before jumping into UWorld. So I started with USMLE RX on the advice of my very good friend, who I'm sure you already know him, Dr. Manik Madan. He has amazing scores in USMLE and has a channel dedicated to it. So I asked him, and he told me, like, just go through USMLE RX. It will help you solidify that foundation you've built. And yeah, so that's what I did. I was almost done with the systems. I started with USMLE RX, I did them in tutor mode, and I just selected the systems I was done with, and I took a 3 to 6 months subscription, I don't remember now, and I just did like 10, 20 questions, let's say, per day. And by the end of my subscription, I had completed 1300, 1400 questions, because I was still studying, and I had not started UWorld. So by the end of my subscription of USMLE RX, so it had a self-assessment exam, so I was like, might as well take it, like it's in the subscription and it's my last day. I had not completed the whole syllabus for USMLE. You can say I did not complete microbiome, which was a major chunk, and everything else. So I was like, might as well, go and take that self-assessment, which was actually like 200 days before I actually took my step 1. So like I was like, okay, let's take it, and I actually got a passing score in that. I got 197, so 196 is passing, without doing all the systems, without doing all the basic knowledge stuff, basic subjects. I had just done the systems, and I got 197 score. So I was really happy that I have not even completed my syllabus, and I am passing my step 1. So that was a great push, and my USMLE RX subscription got finished, and that is the time I purchased UWorld for 6 months, and I started doing questions on UWorld while I completed the basic subjects which I was doing. So in the start in UWorld, I did random and timed, and I just unselected the parts which I had not studied, which was at least like I had completed everything. By the time I was done by 10-15% of UWorld, I was doing everything on random and timed mode. So since I was also going for internship, it was a bit tough for me to do random time, because I sometimes used to get, like I have 30 minutes where I don't have to do anything. So I would do some questions, and if I would do on random time mode, I had to, pause the exam. And when during the review, I had forgotten most of the questions, so I had to read the question stem again in order to understand why did I choose this answer, and in order to understand the explanation. So I did about 40 to 50% of UWorld on random, timed, and non-tutor mode. And I realized it's taking too much time, because I am also doing my internship, and that's when I switched to tutor mode. And I was like, I still did random, so I got random questions and tutor mode, and I think that way I was able to do more questions in a day, because as I said, I was going I was also doing my internship duties and all. So whenever I used to get time, I had created a 40 question block on tutor mode. So I used to open Anki on the side, just so if I have to create a flashcard, I can create it, and UWorld on one side, so on my iPad. So I did my UWorld questions. For example, I got some new knowledge from UWorld, or I got something correct. I used to convert that into an Anki flashcard and tag it as my UWorld incorrects, and that's about it. So this is how I completed UWorld, and I was able to complete 40 to 60 questions. 40 was for sure. It was non-negotiable for me. I started a 40 question block every single day, and I had to complete it by the end of the day, no matter what, how hectic is my internship. And by the time I was nearing 60% of UWorld, I was able to complete 60 questions per day, just because I was doing tutor mode and it was taking less time. And I prefer tutor mode now. Like now that I've used both the modes, I prefer tutor mode is faster, and that instant shock which you get, that, oh, I got the question incorrect, oh, and that was the correct answer. That helps me retain the information a little bit better, I feel. But yeah, so that's my say on tutor versus time non-tutor mode. I still did timed mode, so my questions were still timed and random, but I had tutor mode also selected, which gave me the explanations right away. So I completed about a 70-80% of my UWorld by So I took my exam in Feb 2023, 1st Feb 2023, and I had completed this 80-90% of UWorld by end of December, like just before New Year's. And I wanted to take actually my step in Jan 2023 because my eligibility was Jan, Feb and March, the 3-month period. And that's what happened. Like I wanted to take a date for Jan 25th, I guess, but I did not get it. It was not available. So the earliest date available was 1st Feb, and I took it. And that's when I was like, okay, there is 1 month and 5-6 days for the exam. So let's take a self-assessment. And for self-assessments, obviously, you have to take NBMEs. So I took all the NBMEs for from 25 to 30. And now there is NBME 31 also recently released, like 1 to 2 days back. Yeah, so before jumping into self-assessment, sorry, I forgot to mention another resource, which was Pixorize, which I use for biochem. So when I was telling you I was studying about the general, like the basic subjects, I use Pixorize for biochem. And yeah, I've also used, sorry, I'm getting a call. Hello? I don't know who's disturbing my video. Sorry. I don't know. Anyway, let me just put it on airplane mode. Sorry, yeah. So I was saying I also did Pixorize for biochem and immunology. And I forgot to mention that resource because I was doing that side by side of UWorld, and like it was easy to memorize these cartoons, to memorize all these difficult metabolic cycles, vitamins, effects of biochemistry, and Anki, obviously the tool to retain all that information. So I use Pixorize for that, and I also use a lot of review resources. So when I had completed all my all my videos, and I was doing UWorld, and I had also completed almost all, like 80-90% of the UWorld, that's when I went into YouTube and I saw some review resources. So notable mentions I would give to Dirty Med, very effective to be used during the end of preparation, especially the ethics part and like the communication part. So he has like question discussion on ethics and communication, and I would say that helped me a lot to actually get the answers correct in the real exam as well as on UWorld. So definitely would recommend that. And I also saw High Yield Guru, his YouTube channel, and he has a whole playlist on NBME discussion. So like it goes by High Yield Guru, musculoskeletal system, NBME question style discussion. So I had completed all my syllabus and everything. I just played that video, and like the way he taught, like he went through questions, I went through the questions with him, and I matched my thought process with his thought process, like why I was ruling this answer out and why I was ruling this answer in. And I feel that really helped me obviously give some confidence to myself that yes, I actually know this. And also like, okay, like the process in which I'm eliminating is also fine, because that's what he's also discussing. And if there was something new knowledge, I just used to take a screenshot of it and put it in my Anki, and obviously Anki was a tool to retain this knowledge as usual. So yeah, that's about the resources I think I had mentioned here. So yeah, that's about the resources. One thing also I would like to mention, I had all the Kaplan books. So when I started my preparation in the 5th year, I had no mentor, no guidance, sadly. If you can guide me or mentor me for my future steps, that would be great. So yeah, I had no mentor or guidance, so somehow I purchased like the Kaplan books, and that did not help me at all before I eventually shifted to BNB and all. So yeah, if you're trying to purchase that, I wouldn't recommend that. So that was about it. I told you about my resources, my workflow, So yeah, we were on my self-assessment. So I completed my UWorld 35-40 days, like 90% of UWorld. I just did 90% of UWorld. I couldn't do 100%. 35 to 40 days before my exam, and that's when I started with self-assessments. So for self-assessments, I used NBMEs. The latest NBMEs which are available are 25 to 30, and as I said, 31 NBME 31 just came out 1 to 2 days ago. So if you're taking step 1 now, you have NBMEs 25 to 31. So I did these NBMEs during my internship as usual, but during I had internship from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. excluding the travel time, and each NBME took about 5.5 hours with half an hour break, and 5 hours is the exam, which consisted of 200 questions. So there was really no way for me to take these exams during my internship. So I had requested in my internship roster to have night duties on the day I wanted to take my NBME. So I scheduled it like this. I took one NBME on a Monday. I reviewed 100 questions on Tuesday and 100 questions on Wednesday of the NBME I took, which has 200 questions. Then I took another NBME on Thursday and again reviewed 100 questions on Friday and 100 questions on Saturday. And also I had internship from Monday to Saturday with Sunday holiday. So I took in just that 1 month in January, I took night duties on Mondays and Thursdays. Night duties, started from 5 p.m. So I knew I can complete an NBME before I go for my night duty. So I started NBME in the morning around 9-10 a.m. and I completed it by 4 p.m. because it's like 5.5 hours, and I went on for night duty. And the next day during internship, I used to review 100 questions, and the next day 100 questions. And again, Thursday I took night duty, took my NBME, and repeated this process. So in January, I had to manage my internship schedule because I had to take my self-assessments. So I took NBME 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Actually, I will tell you in the order. I took NBME 25, which I felt was the most difficult NBME according to me. And even generally when I saw Reddit, it is the most difficult of all. Then I took NBME 27. Then I took NBME 28. So 28 was also on the same page as 25. I found it a bit difficult. 27 was a little bit easier. Then I took NBME 29. Then I took UWorld essay, the UWorld self-assessment, which comes in your UWorld subscription. You have two UWorld self-assessments, 1 and 2. So I took UWorld essay 2, which usually people say is not predictive now, but I felt like it was predictive. The score which they give is predicted, not the type of questions I feel, but the score, the curve they have, I feel is predictive. But there are very mixed reviews on UWorld essay 2. Generally speaking, NBMEs are the real gold standard to predict your scores and not UWSAs, but nonetheless I had the subscription. I took my UWSA 2, then I took NBME 30, then I took UWSA 1, and then in the end I took NBME 26. I passed all my NBMEs, and so I was pretty confident that I would pass the real exam, but obviously there is that fear of unknown. Obviously, the NBME 25 I took, I was not passing by much score. My score was just around 205 or 200. It was passing more than 10 points, 5 to 10 points, but it was not great. But by the end of my last NBMEs, I was pretty confident that I am getting a safe pass score, which was north of 70%. And just 1 week before the exam, I booked my free 120. So free 120 is another self-assessment, which are basically 120 free questions from NBME, who are the makers of the USMLE Step 1 exam. So you can, as it says, it's free 120. You can take it free, 120 questions sitting at home, or you have an option to pay some amount of money and actually take it at the testing center where you're going to take your USMLE Step 1. So since, as I said, I had lack of some guidance and mentorship, I was like, just to curb this anxiety, I will go ahead and take my free 120 at the center, and I'm ready to pay that amount and take it at the center. And I'm glad I did. So I took my free 120 at the testing center where I had to Prometric center where I had to take my USMLE Step 1, and I bombed it. So I don't know why. The style of the questions in free 120 I felt was a little bit different from UWSAs and NBMEs, which I was doing in this past month. So NBME had a little bit shorter style of questions, which like 2-3 lines to 5-6 lines. UWSAs had like 5-6 lines to 9-10 line questions, and then free 120 was a different ball game. While the concepts tested were, which I had studied, but the question length really surprised me. I did not expect this. Like, I literally was scrolling the page because the question length was so big, and I knew that this free 120 is like closely resembles the real exam, and I bombed that exam. Like when I when I pressed end on my last block, I was like, I failed. But to my surprise, I did not fail. I got a safe pass there also, around I think 70%. But yeah, I felt like I bombed that exam just because of the question length. I did not expect that before, and etc. and etc. So that did not help with my confidence going into step 1, which was just 1 week later. But actually, when I look at it, in hindsight, I feel that it was something good that happened to me. I got the feeling that, okay, if you bomb an exam and you still passed, so that's fine. Trust your preparation, trust your score, Subha. You actually bombed an exam. You did not do good according to you, and you still passed by a good margin. So that's an indication that you should have a safe pass in USMLE Step 1 also, which is just pass and fail. So that's how I thought about it, rather than sulking that how I got a bad score and stuff like that. Obviously, had I failed that exam, I would have reevaluated myself and maybe pushed back the date, but that did not happen. I passed safely in that exam, but the feeling was that I failed. So it was reassuring that the feeling is I failed, but like it's a pass. So even if it happens in the real step 1, don't worry, trust your scores. So that's about it about my self-assessments. And now let's jump to the exam day experience. So after free 120, 1 week, I just reviewed the stuff. I was just literally waiting now, like let me just take my exam. I have nothing else to study. I have nothing else to do. I was just doing my Anki, my incorrects from UWorld again in Anki, my incorrects from NBME again in my Anki. And that's about it. Watching, as I said, the review videos on YouTube of High Yield Guru and Dirty Medicine, etc., and just trying to review everything. For me, first aid was not useful this time, and many people just brush up first aid towards the end, because I did not use it as most people use it. I just used it as a skeleton, as a structure, and I just had that 2018 one only, and I just used it as a skeleton. So I did not study from first aid. I just did my Anki religiously, and that was enough, I would feel. And jumping onto exam day, so I have this problem of not getting some sleep before my exam. So I was like, when I'm taking my free 120 1 week before the exam, I'll try some methods if I can sleep before the exam, because it's literally the same thing. I have to drive to the center, etc. So the testing center, the Prometric center, is 1 hour away from my place, and I had to reach there by 7:15. That means I had to leave my house by 6:15. That means I had to wake up by 4:45 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And during my internship, I have a habit of waking up by 7:45, 7:30 a.m. So I had to change my schedule a bit. So what I did was, I tried to sleep early, the day of my free 120, but that did not work out. I just slept like maybe 3 hours or less than 3 hours, and I could really feel the consequences of that when I was taking my free 120. I could feel that my my head was clouded a bit, I would say. So that was not a great experience. So I was like, I have 1 week and I have to really fix something. So what I did was, 2 days before the actual exam, I just slept for 2 hours purposely, so that I would feel really sleepy the day before the exam. I know there's an amazing video by Dirty Medicine about biohacks to get 260 plus in step 1. That's the title of the video. You can watch that, but that also recommended the same thing, like you get up early no matter what, have some less sleep the day before exercise, so you are tired by the end of the day and you have a good night's sleep. So I just did it the day before exam, like 2 days before the exam I had like 2 hours sleep. 1 day before the exam, like less sleep, so just like I can sleep the night before the exam. That was my idea, and that happened. I got around 6 hours of sleep, which is fine before an exam, because judging by how much anxiety you have, you usually sleep less before an exam, at least I do. But 6 hours was enough. I woke up fresh, I was ready to go for my exam. I had taken the number of the cab driver which dropped me for my free 120. I did not want any hiccups. I was like, I took the number of the cab driver who drove me from my house to the center when I was taking my free 120, and I was like, okay, he knows the way, he knows everything now, I can trust him, I don't want any hiccups. So like I passed free 120, I had the same cab driver, I want the same cab driver. So when I'm taking my step 1, maybe I'll contact him for step 2 as well. Who knows. So anyway, yeah, I went to the exam center, and because I had taken free 120, I already knew all the process, where to keep my bags, lockers, what to do in break time, the checking time. I was really comfortable with my surroundings. I had no anxiety at all. I was feeling confident, and I think that really helped me during the exam, and I feel I did my exam even better than my self-assessments. Yeah, that's about it about my exam day experience. I was feeling fine. I took some granola bars. I took chicken nuggets, like high protein and fat. I took some chocolates with me. I took coffee also. I'm not a coffee person. I was like, just for emergency cases, if I feel really sleepy, I'll take coffee to my exam center, and I used to have a bite or two in my break time. How I took my breaks was, so there are 7 blocks and I have 6 breaks. So in between every break I have in between every block I have a break. So I took it as 5-minute break, 5-minute break, 10-minute break, 10-minute break, 15-minute break, 15-minute break. So 5, 5, 10, 10, 15, 15. That's how I spaced my breaks, and I think that was perfectly fine. I was not feeling exhausted by the end of the exam. I was used to the 5-hour NBME exams which I took in the last month, so that prepared me really well, and I felt like I could go for another block. Thankfully, I did not have to. That's in step 2, which is like 8 blocks. So I feel this break strategy was fine. It worked well. It had ample amount of rest. I could eat in between the breaks. Like I had an apple also in the 3rd break, and then chicken nuggets in the 4th, 5th, 6th break, some coffee, etc, etc. Yeah, like it was pretty fine. The exam day experience was good. It was much better than free 120, which I felt like I bombed it. So I'll tell you about the secret trick which I have, which to have some mental peace. Now I don't know if it works for you or not, but I am used to getting the results of any exam I take immediately. Like I don't like to wait for my results. So throughout my student life also, I used to analyze my exam like well, so that coming out of the test center, I have an idea of what mark I'm going to get. So even if it was the 10th or 12th board exams, I used to circle the questions which I had a doubt in, and coming out of the exam I used to tell my parents, okay, there were, let's say, 20 questions, I circled 3 questions. So I think I should get these many marks, considering all the 3 questions I circled are wrong, like consider the worst. And that's usually what worked for me. And so even during my self-assessments, when I was taking my NBMEs at home, I used to flag the questions which I was not comfortable with. And let me tell you an example. So my exam closely, I would say, difficulty wise resembled NBME 30. And how I can say that is, objectively I can say that because I always used to count my flagged number of questions and the marks that I actually got. So in NBME 30, I flagged about 60 plus questions out of 200, which is like, I calculated the percentage. I flagged 33% of the questions. So considering, like, let's just imagine the worst case scenario, 33% questions are wrong, which I flagged. So that would still have me at a passing score of 67%, and you need more than 60% to pass step 1 according to USMLE's website. But the 33% flag does not translate into 33% incorrect. The incorrects are usually less in my experience according to my analysis. So if I have flagged 33% of the questions, I would just get maybe 25% incorrect and not all 33%. So I used to analyze my score accordingly. So when I took my step 1 exam, whatever questions I was flagging, I wrote it down on the sheets which I get. So for example, in block 1, I flagged 10 questions, so I wrote it down. So like all the 7 blocks, I used to write down the number in my sheet which they give about my flagged questions. And in the end, like before getting out of the exam hall, I just memorized those numbers that, okay, I flagged 10 in this, 15 in this, 10 in this, 12 in this, and I totaled it and I remembered the number. And when I exited the exam hall, I quickly wrote down that number in my phone. And actually I saw that after calculation there are 280 questions in the step 1. I actually also flagged 33% of questions, just like I flagged in my NBME 30, which was 33%. And NBME 30 was my best NBME, in which I got the best score. So I was objectively feeling confident that yes, I should pass this exam, even if, let's say, all 33% of flagged are incorrect, which they usually are not. Usually the incorrects are less than the flagged. I would still pass. So that's why I had a little bit of confidence coming out of the exam hall, and it gave me some mental peace in the 14-day period, which you have to wait to get your results. So had I not done this, I would say I would be really anxious, because it's a 7-hour exam and you tend to remember the difficult part of the exam coming out of the exam hall. I also feel that I remembered the difficult part of the exam, but that objective analysis which I had, that okay, I flagged 33% of the questions, so I should pass, even if all are incorrect, which obviously all won't be incorrect according to my analysis. And also there are experimental questions in step 1, so you remove that also, which are not in NBME. So I was like, this is actually a good exam according to my analysis. Obviously I would never get to know my score or how well I did. All that matters is I passed, which is above 196, and I was confident that I would. But obviously there was the fear of unknown, anxiety, little bit 1-2 days before the result day, but I was expecting a pass. So that's what happened, and that helped me keep my mental peace these 14 days. And yeah, that's about my journey. Just let me review the points. Have I covered everything? So I had written down the points which I have to cover in this video. So yeah, I think I covered literally everything, and I hope this video has been helpful for you, and you find some value out of this video from my journey. I started out as a foreign medical graduate in my own home country to passing step 1, and I would say consistency played a big part in it. As I said, I did Anki 1-1-2-5 days, and I feel very proud of it, because I think that's what yielded me the results. And if you are someone who's struggling to prepare for step 1, I would say, like, just keep working hard, trust your practice course, have consistency, because consistency plus hard work will yield results, in my opinion. And yeah, that's about it. If you like this video, if you gained something from it, don't forget to press the like button, share it with your friends who are about to take USMLE or planning for USMLE. I'll have more USMLE content on this channel now, because that's now that my path is decided about USMLEs. And yeah, just subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And thank you for spending all this time watching my journey and sticking with me. Bye bye.